Beyond Barriers? Give us a quick.
Beyond Barriers is a independent living center. Our whole purpose is to help people with disabilities stay independent in their own communities.
So basically what we're here for is the 35th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act, and there's a community celebration this Friday evening.
Yes, so we have teamed up with the City of Hutchinson's Human Relations Commission to have a ADA celebration. We are celebrating the 35th anniversary of the signing of that law. We will have kind of a cool community celebration where we'll kind of, I don't want to say take over, but we're going to kind of take over Avenue A Park, and we've got it where we're going to close down the street between A and B on Washington, and have different things. We've got free hot dogs. Going to have like a dunk tank and some disability simulations to allow people to really just see what it's like to be a person living with certain disabilities.
So the act itself was signed back in July of 1990, and it's basically a big civil rights because it helps protect the rights of disabled people.
Yes. So the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed July 26th, 1990, and it ensures people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everybody else, and that's in employment, state and local government services, public accommodations, transportation, housing, Yeah,
I had a good friend, your relative that I went to high school with, and I know that I could physically see the struggles that he sometimes had going from class to class, and it was basically because of his disability, and at that point there really wasn't any protections to help him. No, and thankfully, we did get the Americans with Disabilities Act because that opened it up where, maybe had we had it a little bit sooner, he would have been able to have some of these, more accessibility issues resolved for school. Just the ADA gave us like curb cuts and ramps and things that, when you have a building that's more accessible for a person with a disability, it becomes accessible for everybody. I like to think of, that wheelchair ramp that's helping that individual in a wheelchair. Think about a single mother pushing her child in her stroller. She uses that ramp to get into a building as well. So accessibility for one is good for all. So it's one of those things, I can remember because this is kind of personal. I'm not saying that I know anybody who's disabled, but I did have a father-in-law that was in a wheelchair. My mother-in-law used a walker. But what really hit to me was the night of graduation where I had to walk Roger up and across the stage because there was no way for him to do it. Yeah, you provided an accommodation for him. You assisted him to get across the stage, and that's one of those things. For a long time, he wasn't even able to go to public schools due to his disability. The ADA is a really big deal. It's opened up our world to people with disabilities and gave them an opportunity to enjoy it just like we all do. So, in coordination with the 35th anniversary, Beyond Barriers is having a fundraiser. Tell me a little bit more about that fundraiser. So that fundraiser, we are trying to get donations, $35 for 35 days, totaling $3,500. Just kind of as a fun way to, fundraise as a nonprofit, but also, celebrate this 35 years. And that it's one of those things that's kind of hard to think about, for, people with disabilities have had their civil rights for 35 years, I was at a conference just this last week and was talking to some youth and explained to them, for 8 years of my life, we didn't even have the ADA. So it's a big deal, and I think we should celebrate it. And the good thing is, throughout the state, there will be different celebrations happening as well. So, we're not the only ones celebrating it.
So how can people donate to the 35 or 35?
I think they've got a link set up. So there's a link you can go on Facebook. If you go to Facebook, find Beyond Barriers of Kansas, and we should have a little link up there, and you can click on that and donate.
So we'll get that information and make sure that it's out there when we put it up on Hutch Post, so we'll have that information. 35 years, what's the biggest thing that has been seen in the past 35 years for people with disabilities?
That's a good one. I would like to say increased accessibility. Since the ADA has been signed, pretty much all new buildings built have to be built accessible. So, wheelchair ramps. If you walk down the street and you see a curb cut, thanks to the ADA. There's so many things that the ADA has done for people with disabilities. It's kind of hard to just pick one, but I would say those are the two that everybody sees on a daily basis.
Okay, so yes, the American with Disabilities Act has done a lot to help people out. Is there anything that hasn't happened that you think should happen to help people with disabilities?
Oh, we could go on for a long time. With those, just curb cuts, for example. Yes, we're seeing more and more curb cuts, but also I think when we look at curb cuts, we need to look at the sidewalks as well, because, for example, you go and you try to navigate a sidewalk with a chair, and there's a lot of those bumps. That gets a little sketchy for a person in a chair. We've made great strides, and I appreciate every curb cut when I see it, because that gives, I've got friends who use chairs so we can hang out and walk down Main Street together. But if the sidewalk's still a little sketchy, are we really accessible? Right. I guess, so I think that would be my biggest thing, is looking at our world and realizing that we have made some great improvements in accessibility, but we could always do a little better.
All right. So this morning we're talking with Anthony Frischenmeyer. He's from Beyond Barriers. We're talking about the 35th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. We'll be back with more right after this break. Show this morning we're talking with Anthony Frischenmeyer, Beyond Barriers, and we're talking about the 35th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. Let's circle back to Beyond Barriers a little bit, because there's some questions that I've thought and said, and things on people might have questions about. But how does Beyond Barriers help people with disabilities?
So we do that in a variety of different ways. So we have an independent living side, and what they do is they can help you find resources. Say you're needing housing. They can help you find those housing applications. They can help you go and talk to the employer, or not the employer, the landlord. We do it. Pretty much, they will do anything that they can possibly do to help you stay independent. What I do is I do employment, so I help people with disabilities find employment, integrated employment in our community. There's just a whole lot we do. It's a lot easier to say what we don't do than what we do. What we do. Essentially, we will help anybody from birth to death. No, we will not make you prove your disability. If you come in and say you could benefit from our services, we're going to help you. We'll help resources. We can help refer you to other places. Advocacy. If you need to go to a doctor and need somebody to go with you to help you understand the whole process, stuff like that, that's stuff we can help you do.
All right, a little bit back. Let's step back a little bit and talk about employment, because that's basically your expertise there. So if I'm an employer and I'm looking for an employee, can an employer reach out to you and say, hey, I have this opening, can you find me somebody to help?
Absolutely. We do have a few employers that call us. Those are employers we have built pretty good relationships with, and they'll call and let us know, hey, we got these openings. And if we have somebody that is interested in that position, because you got to have interest in the position you're working, or you're not going to want to go. But B, the scheduling and everything will work for them. Then we'll look at we'll apply. One of the big things to employing people with disabilities is providing them with reasonable accommodations.
Right.
If we have the right accommodations in place for that employee, that's an employee that most likely is going to stay with you and work harder than you would ever even think, because they may not have been given a shot ever.
Right, and I have worked with individuals with disabilities in the past, and you'll find out that some of those people are the most dedicated workers. They'll bend over backward to do whatever it is you ask.
Oh yeah, and part of that is the maybe not getting that opportunity ever, but once they get there, they know what it's like to have to go back and not have a job. So they're going to work a little bit harder. And I think we've got a whole untapped pool of people that could fill some of these empty positions. We just got to be able to accommodate, the needs they have.
Okay. We got a quick minute left to go. Let's talk a little bit more about, let's circle back and and remind people about the celebration on Friday.
Okay. So, yep. It's Avenue A Park, between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. This Saturday, or this Friday, the 25th. We'll have hot dogs and water and chips, disability simulations. We're going to try to have some adaptive sports, and then just kind of like some resources that people may not know that are available in Hutch.
All right, so that is it you and your organization in the city, or is it your organization and other organizations, or? So
essentially, the event itself is being put on by Beyond Barriers in the City of Hutchinson's Human Relations Commission. But we have, 5-10 different organizations that will be there with tables. We have one of our Jason Probst. He's going to come and look at recording one of his podcasts there, just to kind of talk to the community and find out what the ADA means to them. So we just tried to find a bunch of different little enjoyable things that we can have and bring to people together and celebrate this our Civil Rights Act.
All right, we've been talking with Anthony Frischenmeyer this morning. He's from Beyond Barriers, and we've been talking about the 35th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. They're having a big celebration on Friday between 3 and 8 down by Avenue A Park. We'll be back with the news right after this break.